Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Ingredients for a Better Life. I'm DNA Chef Jay, joined by Dr. Ray Nettles, the Chief Medical Scientist and founder of the Stop and Regrow Hair Regrow Program. Good morning, Doctor. How are you doing today?
All right, good morning, Chef Jay. Always great to see you.
Yeah, you as well. And today is a pretty interesting version of our podcast because we're actually going to go into the lab work of mine and we're going to post it publicly. That was taken 5 years ago before I started the Stop and Regrow program. So we're going to put those numbers up and kind of dispel any myths or fears. I know because I had some fears going into it about the unknowns, and sometimes we don't want to know about those results. We think, oh, it's bad. I've got cancer. I'm going to die. My father. All this stuff plays around with the other side. The conscious unconscious side of the brain can be tricky. So we want to dispel those myths and explain to people why getting this biochemical report card will not only potentially save your life and prevent future diseases, but it will give you a greater, vitality and overall quality of life, as well as a pretty good head of hair. So, doctor, let's get into it.
You got it, Chef Jay. So you are referring to the biochemical report card, and we are what we eat. So you and I are going to look into the bloodstream, which is the molecular Nile River, to find out what you're made of based on what you're eating. Now, I'm going to go over a couple of slides with you that we normally go over for the new patient, so to set up the report card reading. Otherwise, it wouldn't make a whole bunch of sense. So we'll we'll go through this pretty quickly, and your viewers can view these slides on another app, I'm sure. Let's share here, share screen.
And all these numbers are concrete. There's no black, it's all black and white. There's no gray area, right, doctor?
That's it, Chef Jay. So mathematics, that's one thing that I really enjoyed in school was mathematics, not the reading comprehension, maybe not so much the history, counting I liked, and as well as the science of the numbers. So you and I are going to look at numbers, and we're going to follow those numbers over time, and those numbers are going to equal the recipes that we have inside the human body, okay? So first thing we did with you, we looked at the pattern of hair loss. So we always do, we perform the hair loss consultation the same way traditional doctors do. We look with a light microscope, and with the light microscope, you can see the cells, the follicle, the hair strands, and we determine the pattern of the hair loss first. And there are 1, 2 acute patterns, 1, 2, 3 chronic patterns. And then we move into talking about the bloodstream as the molecular Nile River, 4,000 molecules in the blood. It sounds like a lot, but we've numbered them. How many cells in the human body? 100 trillion cells. Once again, sounds like a lot, but how many different types of cells? Only 200. So only 200 types of cells, and only 4,000 individual specific molecules that we can measure. This slide shows the banana cells, and inside a banana, in the old days, 200 years ago, we thought bananas were made of banana knives, right? You cut open a banana, it's just mushy banana cells. Well, that's not actually true. It's 54 molecules that make up the banana cell. And some of the molecules you'll see here, alanine, serine, proline, some amino acids. You see omega-3 fatty acids, palmitoleic acid. So a lot of different things go in to make the banana. We also show a picture of how we grow hair in sugar water versus clean spring water. So the bloodstream is basically the Nile River, and the bloodstream or the Nile River will feed all of the cells in the body. So how much sugar you have inside the Nile River is important. How much fat you have in the Nile River is important. How much protein you have. So we're going to look inside the blood work to find out how much are the ingredients that we're using. Are they in the right ranges, or can we go up or down on any of those? So instead of a specific diet based on types of foods which doesn't make a lot of sense using names. We're going to use the molecules that food are made of, and we're going to decide what the diet should be based on the number of molecules of each macronutrient per food group is inside the bloodstream. And then once we know the macronutrients that need to go up or down, we can then decide what types of names of foods go into those buckets. But we're going to make it a lot easier to see and understand how the human body works. Okay. So
That's a lot easier said than done.
a lot easier said than done. You're right about that. Molecular medicine. What is this, doctor? It sounds science fiction. Well, they called it precision medicine, and precision is the giveaway. Precise numbers, math, measuring things with x-rays. There is no more precise diagnosis than getting your blood evaluated under an x-ray microscope, and that's what we do. So the DNA is a molecule inside our cells that has the genetic recipe, or the blueprint, as Dr. Lipton likes to talk about. But the control of the DNA comes from the environment. So what Dr. Lipton said, the stem cell biologist, he said, we're the equivalent of a skin-covered petri dish. Petri dish, skin-covered, and our blood is the culture medium, nourishing all the cells and containing the information that controls them. So we're going to look at the environment, which is the bloodstream, and we're going to ask ourselves, what is the message that's coming from the bloodstream? And if you and I don't like the message that's coming from the bloodstream, we're going to alter the message in the blood. The oldest book in the world, the Bible, Leviticus 17:11, the life of the flesh is in the blood. The life of the flesh is in the blood. So we went to the blood to find out the life of the flesh, and the flesh would be the skin and the hair. So it's all coming together based on that oldest book that was written by God's finger. Okay. All right, so the next step is the first law of thermodynamics. We pull in a little bit of science into the closed system, and we're going to look at all the molecules you're made of, and we're going to look especially at the testosterones and the estrogens, and we're going to ask ourselves, how does nutrition play a part in moving these molecules around? And then how much do we need to move around based on the enzyme regulators?
Okay. And this is where it gets tricky, especially with the Industrial Revolution and everything with the modern convenience diets. This is where it gets interesting.
Yeah, it gets very interesting. So we're going to go inside your bloodstream right now, and we're going to look at the nutrition, cross-reference with the genetic biomarkers to decide how your health is, what we can do to optimize it, and then how the genetic recipes that came from mom and dad's DNA are regulating your hormones inside your body. And you're aware that 80% of men have an enzyme abnormality or a defect that will cause a hormone imbalance that we will find in your bloodstream if you happen to be one of those 80% of men. If you happen to be one of the 40% of men, we will discover two enzyme defects that are both working at the same time. Hence, you'll start to understand you could never treat hair loss with one molecule or one ingredient or one medication. And that was the fault or the problematic logic that was used previously, which was one medication for a cellular disease. Today, we look at the molecular environment. We might have to use 1, 2, 3 ingredients to move the molecules around to discover the recipe that will optimize our cellular health. Okay. All right, so let's get the blood work out, and I will share that with us right now.
A quick question, doctor, I have a quick question, but before you get on that is, what you talked about, it's not just one ingredient or two ingredients, or a lot of times, it was this finasteride craze, and off Amazon, or these companies that will prescribe medications and send them to people for hair loss without doing any blood work, without doing the diagnostics, which to me seems like a negligent thing to do. So, it's I wanted just to underline that point to people, that if you're not getting blood work done, you don't want to accept any medication from a doctor, right? Or from a company, never mind Hey, there's a lot of doctors out there these days, but not many good ones. So I just wanted to point that out, doctor, that if if you're not getting this blood work analyzed, you definitely don't want to be ingesting things because you can have a hormonal shift and all kinds of bad things.
Well, Jay, I'd like to think about it. Well, if you ask yourself, do I deserve a precise diagnosis? Do I deserve a precise treatment? Or do I deserve what's right off the shelf that'll do as good as it can do? Well, those are the old days, right? In the 1900s, early 1900s, we went through World War One, World War Two. We've got cars with batteries in them now. So we've advanced a little bit, and now
Yep.
you've got a group of people. 2 to 3% of people in the United States, a very small number, understand precision medicine. There is a large group that doesn't understand precision medicine. So they're the ones that are a little stuck in the middle. So we do need to help them. So hopefully your show will get the
Yep.
message out there. And someone should ask for precision healthcare. And precision means blood work. And you have to get the blood
Yep.
work to understand what's going on. Otherwise, you're just guessing and asking each other questions and histories about how it feels to lose your hair, but without an understanding of what the molecular cause is. And today, as we talked about, there's a mathematical equation.
And to be clear, this is not the panels that you get when you go into your primary doctor once a year for your blood work. This is a totally different panel of testing.
You're right, Jay. So, Chef Jay, the patients will go see their doctors for their annuals, and we'll get about 3 of these numbers, and we need 9 biomarkers. So we're going to have to.
Okay.
You have to tie the whole story together, and if you don't understand the whole story, it's hard to order all the pieces of the story.
All
So
right, let's get into it, doctor.
macronutrients here: protein, fat, and sugar. And we know that sugar is not good for the human body. We don't need a lot of it. But how does a number in a blood report mean much to us? Okay, so we've got a lot of data from 6 continents all over Earth, and we've got the healthy ones, the not so healthy ones. We've cross-referenced what you eat, how you eat, and we've come up with optimal biomarker numbers based on our data. So this A1C is a reflection of the 90-day average of your sugar inside your molecular Nile River. And you came in today with a number of 5.7. How does that rate? Well, 5.7, back then in 2018, this was the start of diabetes. And you say, well, hold on, doc, I eat a lot of fruits and vegetables and berries and bananas and apples. I'm the healthiest person I know at the counter when we go to for lunch. And now you understand all of those things are in the bucket called carbohydrates, and that bucket is sugar. So when you start to understand there's no such thing as healthy foods, there's only one of 3 macronutrients. So it's a lot easier to put the foods into the buckets.
That's right. Yeah, that's a lot of people get tripped up on the fructose and I'm eating fruit. But it's sucrose, fructose. It's all sugar. It's all digested the same way and into the bloodstream. So, yep.
You're right about that. Glucose, right? All comes down to the simple sugar, no matter how complex you bring it in. Okay. So 5.7, start of diabetes. Where is the athlete? 5.0. 5.0 is where the athlete is located. No other data set will reveal that number. That comes from our 20 years of data research. So 5.0 is the optimal number for the athlete, but guess what? 4.5 is the triathlete. And a couple of years ago, we found a 4.1. So the numbers will start to reflect the change in society as people become a little healthier. Today in the United States, 87% of the population overweight, out of shape, with the A1C well over 6. So we really need to tighten our belts. Okay. So A1C 5.7.
So and that just real quick, that A1C level is a direct correlation into cardiovascular disease. Is that right?
Absolutely. The sugar is correlated to the inflammatory diseases, and it just use your logic, right? So 5.7% sugar inside your Olympic-sized Nile River, and you're swimming inside there. Would you
Yeah.
swim faster and better, perform better in less sugar or more sugar? Well, you already understand how it
Yeah.
works. So the molecules are very similar to you swimming out there in the Nile River. We want less sugar, and the molecules will function better. So sugar
It,
goes
for me,
down.
yep. For me, it helps to think of a cell and a cell wall and what makes it up. Because we've all taken, basic biology in school, and there's protein, there's fat, and there's water, right, doctor? And there's no sugar inside the cell wall, isn't that right?
That's right, Jace. Yeah. So the sugar
So
inside the DNA ribose, and then you use it for just fuel, momentary fuel, and that's all that you need the sugar for. All right. So
okay, so the
protein level.
protein level wasn't too bad, not too bad.
Yeah, protein level 7.2. We're shooting for over 7.5. We increase here. How do we increase? We don't increase by increasing the number of grams in each setting. We talk about how the small intestines absorbs protein only 6 to 10 grams per hour. Using that logic, we then build you a daily schedule of when to consume the protein. HDL fat 59. We're shooting for over 60. There's a good fat and a bad fat. We don't really look at the bad fat. We look at the good fat. If you increase the bad fat, the good fat so much, the good fat will go down. So the goal in
That's
life is
right.
always to focus on the good and avoid the bad. Avoid the evil one and the temptations down here. Okay. So your nutrition was easy for us to look at. It was easy for us to create a plan. Within 6 to 12 months, you were on a good daily routine, and all of these numbers improved, and we could follow up the blood work in the future to see how these numbers improve. Now, you also came in with a little bit of hair loss, and the pattern was miniaturizations in zones 1, 2, 3, and 5. So we had to find the root cause of that, and the root cause of the hair loss is based on the enzymatic deficiencies that lead to the imbalance of the hormones. So we review the hormones and use deductive reasoning to figure out how the enzymes are working. So you'll see here that your total testosterone was low for a young man. You came in your 30s. So your total testosterone was 480, and you'd want that over 600. So you notice that one number is too low. So if one number is low, we start to look for the other numbers that are high. So is it low because of the recipe? You're not eating enough good fat, HDL over 60. You're doing a good job bringing in the building blocks. It's got to be the recipes from mom and dad. That's the deductive reasoning. So now that it's a genetic enzyme defect, we look to find out which of the molecular variants is your body wanting to make. So free testosterone, you're making 10.7, and you're making 15 of the dihydro. So 50% more of the dihydro version, and that's causing slow miniaturizations in zones 1, 2, 3, and 5. You also noted that you had a little bit of racing thoughts, some anxiety. You tear up at some of the movies, and you wanted to know what caused that. And that's based on the estrogen in your body. You also noted you had a little extra weight that you didn't think was yours. You thought you should be lean and mean based on your workout that you were doing. So estrogen holds on to water, and it makes a man have more of a womanly body shape. It also can cause racing thoughts, and if you have way too much, it'll end up causing gynecomastia. So your level showed up at 36, and the optimal number is 18 to 32. So you were slightly above, and the treatment
And
there.
that's a huge thing right there with the hormones, is because a lot of people will just accept, well, my mother, my father, my uncle Bob has anxiety or has depressions. I have it. It's just the way it is. So I go to the doctor. The doctor gives out the antidepressants, or it's a lot of it is just food or ingredient based, like you're saying. And from myself and my experience with avoiding estrogen products like soy and being more knowledgeable about HDL fats and exercise and the ingredients prescribed in my capsule from you, that problem was corrected. So people don't have to accept what they were given from Uncle Joe or Mom and Dad with their DNA. Now we can make changes with this program that we're doing here. So I just wanted to underline that so people are aware that you're not stuck with what you were given DNA wise.
And that term, as you mentioned, is called epigenetics, outside genetics. So mom and dad gave us a recipe that causes us to have racing thoughts and anxiety. 20% of adult males are diagnosed with adult onset ADHD. That is what our data shows in the blood work, is that 20% of men have estrogen imbalances. So as we decrease the estrogen in a man's body, we remove the anxiety and the racing thoughts. So the ADHD, adult hyperactivity, is caused. See, this is not a cause. That just gives you a description. The cause of ADHD is increased or decreased estrogen inside a man's body. So some men, we have to increase their estrogen if it's below a certain number. We have to decrease it in other cases. But we cannot increase or decrease the estrogen and make it disappear. The estrogen will reappear as a testosterone variant. So if we're going to decrease your estrogen, we're going to turn it back into testosterone, and then we have to regulate which direction it would be going as far as the testosterone variant. So it can be complicated, but it's a very known algorithm as far as how the numbers go inside the blood work and the capsule that is designed for your blood chemistry.
And that capsule you're speaking of is formulated to the individual, like from their lab results. Then you'll create a capsule, if needed, directly for them, only for them. And that's how this works. This isn't like Dr. Ray goes to the shelf and picks A, B, C, or D. This is total customization supplementation.
You're right, Chef Jay. So your capsule will be determined based on the numbers that were discovered in your bloodstream. And there are quite a few different formulations that could be comprised with those four molecules. So you couldn't take someone else's, for example. You'd need to find the one that was for your body, or you could cause the wrong molecules to increase. And that's what happened over the last 20 years. And I think there's a lot of patients that are scared of taking capsules for hair loss because they're worried about side effects. And those side effects are known effects of the enzyme regulation today.
And oftentimes they're not side effects; they're allergies. Often that are quickly identified and fixed. Sometimes a person will react with something, and isn't it oftentimes just an allergy that you can make a quick tweak and fix? It's not a side effect. People get hung up on these things, and especially DHT blockers. We want to block DHT. It's like, well, you don't want to block all the DHT, right, doctor? So people, a little information can be dangerous, I find, and that Google is great. But a lot of people don't understand the whole process with this hair loss thing, which is just a cosmetic indication of an unbalanced biochemistry, and the best way to figure it out is the biochemical report card. The only way.
Yep, that's the only way. So the only way is to get the blood work evaluated and interpreted. So we get quite a few patients that come in and say, I've already had blood work. Well, it's not the blood work necessarily, it's the interpretation of the blood work. And it's also, just because you order blood work doesn't mean you've ordered all the tests, right? So blood work, as we mentioned, we could look at 4,000 different biomarkers. If you looked at all 4,000 biomarkers, that blood panel would probably cost $2.4 million. So this is why you can't just get all of them. You have to decide which of the $2 million worth of biomarkers are you willing to go review. And our BRC review, the panels cost about $1,800 if you didn't have the insurance, or if you didn't use our Stop and Regrow member rate. Our member rate is a $1,400 discount. So that blood panel is only $395. So there's quite a few people that maybe watch your show that don't have insurance. Well, that doesn't mean don't spend a little money on health. So if you're saving money by not having insurance, I would use that money as an investment to get the blood work done.
Yeah, just to resonate on something that you said, it's the precision medicine that you deserve, and when you break it down, what people are paying for is the research. These tests that you've developed, these biomarkers and all these specific tests over 25 years you've spent, tweaking this thing. So, and it's really not a high cost when you put it into perspective. I mean, it's $7 a day, it's less than, a takeout lunch when you break down the program. And if you look at the benefits, like personally, besides the hair, which is a great attribute, or a nice side, I say a nice, side effect, or it's a nice bonus, having great hair. But, identifying the A1C, which will prevent being a diabetes statistic, one is huge for $7 a day. The cardiovascular benefits, not having, heart disease when you're 70 years old, that's huge, and also, the hormonal effects, identifying the estrogen level for your mental health, and then the diet, supplementation, the help you get with the food and creating a diet. It's a whole vitality program. So if you can't, $7 a day to do something like that is it's a bit strange. And I, suggest for myself and to get the blood work done every 6 months. But again, it's what do you deserve, right? What do you feel you deserve? That's the question.
That's it, Chef Jay.
All right, Doctor. Well, thanks for joining me today. And next week, we'll dive into another trending discussion and try to dispel any further myths, get back to the science, and try to help some people, fix their problems. So, Doctor, thanks for your time. Always great to see you. And thanks for the valuable work you do. God bless.
You got it. Thank you, Chef Jay. Enjoy the rest of your day, my friend.
You as well.